Well. What do we have here? Do you see this? Do you see what I'm looking at? There's something specific here that looks a bit different, a bit new, you might say. What is this thing? What? This Revit icon. This is not your typical Revit icon. Yes, it looks the same, but there's a 4. It is Revit 2024. Yes, we are here. We have Revit 2024, and I'm going to open it now. It came out something like hours ago. Most highly anticipated release in, let's call it years. Look at this beautiful splash screen. I like 4s more than 3s. I don't know why. And immediately I just have to stop and let's just stop and take a moment here for what we see. This, my friends, you're all my friends. This is Revit 2024, and it has everything and more you hoped for and didn't know you were getting. Maybe up until a couple days ago, but regardless, this is Revit 2024. I'm so excited about this, and particularly because of dark mode. Look at this. I don't need to say a lot more, and we'll get to see more of it as we get into the program itself and some of the newer aspects and new features of it. But I'll be honest, I end up using not every year of Revit to the degree that I need to for all my projects. So I end up using mostly the even years. And I don't know, I should do a poll, honestly. Do you think the even years or odd years of Revit releases are better? I have biases, but in my opinion, it is the even years. They seem more polished. They seem to be bigger, better features and more, let's call it, awe-inspiring. So before we get into this, obviously we're very well into it, as you can see, but before we get into it, if you would please demolish that like button for the love of Revit 2024 and all its new updates. Believe me, this is not the only new feature video we will do for Revit 2024. We will go into each of them specific to architecture, of course, but each new feature specifically, at least one video dedicated to them, because there's plenty of new updates. Granted, not a billion new updates, thank goodness, to be honest, but they're all nice and polished, at least from the surface. So getting into it now, I will, of course, in the description, leave a link to the full release notes, which include everything beyond just architecture. Believe me, there's a lot of new features, but my main comment about the number of features, if I'm looking at just architecture, it's pretty well condensed, and I think that's good. I didn't think Revit needed a ton of new updates. Of course, there are things I want to see, but what does it need to work better, work smarter? I think it did nail a lot of things here. Okay, so first of all, obviously dark mode, it speaks for itself. It's hard to tell if I like it yet, because I definitely do like it. Don't get me wrong, because it's not white, the stark white. I love the white in the morning, but in the afternoon, I don't want this. But it's really nice and easy to toggle. But because we're on the home screen, really not much is new here. Obviously, we have our models of families. That's not new. And really, the only thing new here is we've got recent files, Autodesk docs, of course, but then my insights. This is so interesting. This kind of came out of left field to me, because my insights, if we click on it, in theory, now I can't speak to whether this is truly up to date or not, if it's just kind of pulling information, just showing me aggregated information across the web or whatever. Point being is it's going to give me my specific user results and my usage results and the details of that specifically, down to the categories I use, the commands I use, the percentage of which they are, basically where I spend my time in Revit. What am I doing in Revit, really? You look at this, optimize a recommendation. We notice you are clicking edit after selecting elements. Well, now, believe me, I have not worked in Revit 2024 yet, so I'm not sure where it's getting all this information, if it's pulling from 23 or 22. I have no idea. So I will be very curious to see how this starts to evolve. And I'm also curious if this can, it appears to me that this is going to become some sort of a home dashboard or home something. Can I edit this in the future? Can I add things? Can I put project information? Can I customize this in any way? Well, I don't know yet. But all I can say is, if nothing else, these first few boxes are going to be really helpful. Efficiency boosters, we can get into this later, but the point is I would check back here periodically. And I think obviously as you use Revit 2024 more often, it's going to get to know you better. It's going to have better results, better usage results and data for how you're using Revit. And you should be able to look at this and say, okay, well, I'm doing this or that, and this is a way to combat it. Or maybe this is where you ask a question to me and I can help you out. Anything like that. So really interesting things. So the next thing that is new with Revit 2024, love saying that, is SpaceMaker is now going to directly sync with Revit. Now, we have not talked about SpaceMaker. I have not had access to it yet. I have got to kick it around online, but I really haven't got to truly use it and test it out yet, which is fine. I definitely plan to. I knew it would be more integrated with Revit, but basically what is SpaceMaker? Well, I'm not going to pull over the what's new in Revit 2024 for a second to get an idea what it is. And really what it is I'm going to play this video, but basically it's a way of taking, really quick real site information, putting your building on it and having your building respond to it in like real world simulations, things like that. You can almost imagine it's like kind of like Format, but with the simulations in a real world setting that can go directly into Revit with all kinds of different Revit properties. Like you can actually bring things in as walls or floors or levels. They all come in. So it's a really interesting thing. So definitely expect to see SpaceMaker on this channel for sure, because we will get to that. Believe me, we will. Because I'm very excited for that. Doing all the yield studies for developers, it's going to be really key to do something like that. And the second you get a yield study that they're interested in, you can immediately bring that into Revit and you're off to the races. You're good to go. The next thing, obviously, we covered the My Insights, which is fantastic. The Dynamo updates, I'll save that for a completely separate video. Have not used Dynamo a lot lately, but nonetheless, we love to see new updates there. Obviously, with all the dark nodes that we got in 23, what's not to love now? Okay, and then at this point, yes, there are lots of minor things. And so, of course, now I will get into the model. We can start exploring this dark mode a bit more. If I click on new here, we have lots of different templates we can pull in, which is fantastic. Most of these I don't care about, but the most interesting one is this multidiscipline and obviously imperial metric. Use that if you want. I can't see myself doing that. I like to use my own template, which is fine, but it does not matter. It really is up to you. But isn't this beautiful? Look at this dark mode. My eyes are loving this. Okay. So let's go back to my recent files here, and they have a brand new sample project, which we'll get to in a moment. Actually, let's go ahead and open it now. But it is pretty. It's really nice. It puts all these disciplines together and presents it in a way where you can see Revit really working together, which is awesome. So obviously we have this beautiful dark mode and customization. So look at this. Oh, I love the UI. So basically every year up until this point, we were getting closer to having these ribbons be darker. We had like a gray and a light, like very, very minimal options, but now it's truly dark. Like this reminds me of a solid like Adobe gray, blue gray, slate gray. I love this. Okay. And now let's just go to a floor plan, level 1 plan here, and you can see what we're getting into. So obviously this is white. You're used to seeing that, but I can come over here to the view tab. And all the way to the right, we can see canvas theme, which is literally the canvas. So this center portion is called the canvas. Everything else is just other windows, other ribbons. So whenever I click this, everything immediately inverts. So I have mixed feelings at this point. And so, it's good. Like, believe me, I'm going to use this most of the time. My issue is where we start introducing sheets. Now, again, I haven't used this but for like a few hours today. So what can I say? But let's go ahead and switch it here, and we can see, it inverts everything. It works, and most of the time there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to do something like this and use this, of course. And I probably will, if I'm being honest. Now, the reason I have not done this myself in the past is coming from AutoCAD, it was just a stark difference, and being able to work in 3D and transitioning from white to dark, it was so jarring, and wasn't a huge fan of that. Now I do want to show you real quick how in previous years you can do this, or how I used to do it. You can come over here to colors, and the background, of course, is currently set to white. You don't want it all the way black, but if I bring this up to maybe a similar kind of blue-gray value that we're seeing here in our canvas, then I can click OK, OK again, and it's going to basically give me the same thing. Now, obviously, it's a little more gray, blue, purple, because I just picked a random color, but nonetheless, we could have done this before. The main thing, honestly, is the ribbon. Like, this is so beautiful. It's clean. There's enough contrast. I can see it. So they really spent some time doing this, and it looks really good. I do appreciate that. Now, I definitely want to change that back, and unfortunately, there's no simple undo button. So that's something to be aware of too if you do end up changing that. So let's go ahead and put that back to white. Now, I do like to do something like 250, 252, just because I can see all of those literally white filled regions. Anything that's specifically white, I can see that. So there we go. Looks pretty good. So it helps the eyes a bit as well. But I want to come back here and just see what this does. Canvas color scheme is currently light. Now, what if I change this to dark and I press OK? Yeah, it just flips the canvas just like this. And that's just that single button. So again, it's fine. It works great. But if I'm just passing by someone's desk, I would not think this is Revit. But I guess I'm going to have to start changing the way I think, because look at this. We have this in Revit. Now, another concern I have is, what does a field region look like? Is it going to maintain the colors, or is everything going to be inverted? It's so hard to tell. So here's gray. I'm actually just going to duplicate this and just call this blue, because I want to make sure it's showing up like the blue I pick. So here's blue, and then it's solid. And yeah, let's just draw a giant square here and see if we see blue. Now, this is something I want to fix as well. And I believe you can fix this within the graphics, but I'm currently editing. And how would I know that this is the box I'm editing? There's just no way to know this. Now, obviously, I'm working with invisible lines. Maybe that's why. Let's come over here. Let's go ahead and make that, I don't know, just a fire rated wall. Okay, so clearly the colors stand out, but let's go ahead and accept this. Cool, so there's my blue. That's great. So the colors are working well, and that makes me like this dark mode even more. All right, let's get rid of this. We'll continue to look at dark mode and different windows and whatnot as we move along through all of these updates. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is go over a couple of things that we can do with sheets. And now this is nothing huge, but this will save you a lot of time, and I promise you. So if I come out of the view here, I can click on this view, I can right click, and I've got a couple new options. I can move a line to sheet. And what does that really do? What does it mean? Well, it's basically saying, well, I don't want this view here on this sheet. I want it on a different sheet, but because it's aligned, I'm basically going to take this view from this sheet and put it on another sheet in the exact same place. So a good example of this and basically working is I'm going to bring it over here, basically off the sheet. And I'm going to right click this, and I'm going to choose Move Align to Sheet. And now I can search a sheet, which is fantastic, but I can also just select maybe the second floor plan. That's what we're on the first one. Let's put it on the second one. So I click OK, and immediately it disappears because it actually left and it went to this second floor plan sheet. So let's click on this, and we could see once this sheet opens, would you look at this? It's right there. That's amazing. That's there. That's fantastic. So that's going to be really helpful in moving sheets around, getting things placed, and reorganizing all your views on sheets. So I'm going to undo that because I don't need that, nor do I want that. So here's another thing that we can do, which I really enjoy. So we've got, obviously we can see all the blue boxes. That tells me that they are on sheets, and we can reorganize the views however we want. But I have a bunch of these working views, and just for an example, let's go over here and make a new sheet. And it doesn't necessarily matter, but I want to make sure that I have enough room right there. So this is going to be plenty big. And something that we have been limited in the past, in previous versions of Revit, was I had to drag and drop single views onto a sheet. I basically had to do this, put it on, do this, put it on, and place it wherever I want, which, again, we're used to that. There's nothing fancy about that. It's just, it is what it is. Now, what we can do is we can select multiple views and place it on one sheet. So let's say, oh, I need this one, this one, this one, and that one. I can put all of these on this sheet at one time. Not only that, but watch this. I'm going to drag all of these here and look at what we, like, I can't believe this. This is awesome. This is going to save me so much time. And that's a lot. That means a lot here. Look at this. So it has organized these views. Now, obviously I picked too many views that are too big, but it has organized these views in a way to where they're literally organized, like as if they were going on a sheet. If I had a sheet big enough, this would work. Now, let's go ahead and place them up here. But look at this. This is phenomenal. They're aligned beautifully. Now, I'm not necessarily sure as to the logic of how it decided, oh, this view goes there and this one. If it's just like literally I picked this one first and that one, obviously we can test this. We can do L1, M1, and then R2 and pick all these, drag them over. We can see, what do we get? Is it just alphabetical? It's a good question. But look at this. I'm not sure of the logic, because it stacks these and it throws this one off to the side. So this one is our L1, R2, M1. So it looks like it's going left to right, up to down. I don't know. You're going to have to play with it. But nonetheless, this is fantastic. And even if I need to shuffle these around, it's not a big deal. I can dump a bunch of views on a sheet and be on my way, which is amazing. That's really cool stuff. Really, really cool. Okay. And then the next thing. This is awesome. As someone who works in 3D, prefers to be in 3D. Now let's look at our 3D. There's no way to explain this other than just to show you. So I don't know if this is a bug, to be honest with you. So I'm currently still in the dark mode, dark theme, when it comes to the canvas view, but it doesn't seem to be working in 3D. I've seen previous screenshots, I guess it was pre-release screenshots, where this white background was, in fact, this dark gray color, and it looked really nice in 3D. Like you saw the 3D, the color, the textures, everything you wanted to see in the building, but the background was a different color. And that's everything we want in a 3D view, right? We want to see everything normally in the building, but just have everything else be black or dark. So let's go ahead and flip this in. I'm gonna zoom in. You can see this looks awful. It's almost like it's inverted, or I don't know. It's just not right. But whenever I change this back to light, we could see, okay, this actually looks 100% normal. And so I'm going to leave this here for 3D views. Again, not sure why. I hope it's a bug that they can fix and that it's not a big deal. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'll have better luck. I have no idea. But I'm going to swing the model around. So this is the model with all the disciplines, but I'm going to swing the model around and show, maybe you can see what I'm extremely interested in. I'll give you like 2 seconds here. It's topography. And I don't love modeling topography, but I love having topography modeled. And so I end up doing it a lot. And because I want to make sure the grades are where they need to be, and it's what everyone is expecting. And that is in 3D, not just 2D. Obviously, we have civil engineers for that. But look at this. So I'm going to select this, and we can see, look at this. They're calling these topo solids. And what does that mean? Well, it means that our topography, if you have used Revit topography before, which I'm sure you have, it always comes out as like this plane or a series of planes that there's nothing solid. And the only way to get something solid or like cut through it or something is to make a section box, or basically kind of trick Revit into giving you dirt, showing dirt underneath the top of the topo surface, which is a bit silly. It's unrealistic. It doesn't make sense, but that is all changed with Revit 2024, which is amazing. So obviously now we can determine basically the depth. It's essentially like a floor, which isn't this amazing? It's like, hello, it's everything we would have wanted in a topography. And now it functions as a floor. Now the cool thing is, obviously, if I come over to massing and site, I can I can bring anything in like normally, whether it is a CAD file or, just a basic topography. I can do all that, but you can see here, it's called a topo solid. It is a solid. We have the exact same create from sketch or import. It's all the same, but the result is just a solid. And so I want you to get in your mind that this is a floor, and it's a floor because it functions just like a floor. Obviously this is in a Revit link. So let's go over here to right here where I've got my site, and all it is it's just the site. A linked model here. Great. I'll go over here to my 3D view, and now I'm just magically in the site model. So now I can click this and we can see a little better what it is. So obviously it's basically like a big old floor. I have all of the information that I would want to see in a floor. Again, the type here. I can do, this is great. I mean, when did you ever think that you could add a layer of gravel in your topography? Now this is going to show up everywhere that you cut through the topography. It's amazing. It's a floor. It literally is a floor. Just imagine it's a floor. I cannot believe this. Okay, so this is great. Obviously we have all the other settings that we're kind of used to seeing with a floor. So okay, yeah, this is great, but what is it really? Like, what is it? What really sells it? Well, the fact that if you have ever worked with the floor, you can modify the sub elements of a floor, basically push and pull all these points, and ta-da, you can start manipulating floors. And so what I've done in the past, because floors gave us so much flexibility in specific points being specific elevations and then altering that across the entire surface, I always use floors to do my topography if I was getting into greater detail and not just importing a CAD, of course. But now I can not only import the CAD, but I can edit the CAD, and I can do that as if it were a floor, because if I click on my topography here, topo solid, it's no longer a topo surface. That's the key here. It's a topo solid. You can see I can modify the sub elements. Oh my gosh. Oh. So let's go ahead and do this, and you will be in awe as soon as I press this button. Here we go. Look at this. Every single point not only looks like it should, but it functions exactly like you should, like it should and like you want it to. Look at this. I can just do this individually. This is amazing. I cannot tell you how much I love this. And we have the exact same controls that we have with floors, adding a point, splitting a line, picking supports, whatever. But the amazing thing is I'm not even limited on the edge of the topography anymore. I don't know if you've ever worked with edges of topography and subsurfaces and subregions. It's just a mess, especially when you get to the edge. The amount of errors you have, it's just a nightmare. But I even have points here that directly affect the edge, and I can do this. I can come up here and it affects nothing but exactly how I want it to. Obviously that's ridiculous, but I can do this however I want, just as if it were in the middle of the topography. It's absolutely amazing. It's beautiful. And gosh, this has been missing for so long. I can specify the elevation where that point is associated to. There's so many things that I can do here. But all in all, you can just think of it as a floor. It's not that advanced. It looks very advanced because it's kind of a ridiculous topography, dramatic topography, but nonetheless, it's awesome. It really is great. And obviously what I do is end up flooding my topography with all these spot slopes to see, okay, what's the slope like there? And that's how I do it. So I cannot wait didn't think I would say this. I can't wait to build a really high quality topography and be able to match civil in 3D really easily this way, and just have an idea on our side where things are. It's just really awesome. Now, something I'm not going to get to in this video, I'm going to say that specifically for the topography video, is we can basically cut through the topography with like anything, walls, floors, like it can all interact with it. We no longer have to think of topography as its kind of own entity that only works with certain parking elements and site elements, and that's it. Like, it's not that. It's a lot more advanced, but at the same time it's not, because like I said, you can think of it as a floor. You can cut floors. You can cut floors with walls. You can do all kinds of things with floors. And all while they're kind of varying across the site or across your building. So it's fantastic. You can think of it as a floor in that way. So I'm going to save that video where we cut through all kinds of different things and really section it out and get an idea. And it's really going to improve things. And I'm so excited for this. Really am. All right. And so I will say there are a lot of smaller updates. And this was, I would call this a very minor update in that Revit, they didn't really highlight it so well in in their latest update video, which, you know, it is what it is. It really isn't a huge deal to me. It just, that's how it worked out. And so obviously this is very minor, but we've got our project browser. We all know what this is. I'm actually going to go back to our larger architectural model here. Let's put our dark mode back on so we could spare our eyes. And we look at the project browser. We have this really nice search, and search in of itself is nothing too fantastic. But the nice thing is, if we look here, the second I start searching, if I just search top, it filters everything immediately. Like I don't have to cycle through and jump through the project browser and expand everything. It does it all for me. Now watch, whenever I delete this, I just go back to the way I was, the state I was in before. It's so beautiful. It's small. It's such a small thing, but it's going to make navigating so easy because maybe I know I need to put a section on this specific sheet. I can just type in sections. All my sections are right here. And whenever I'm done throwing these sections on, boom, I'm just back to where I was. I love it. It's so easy. It's really, that's all, you know, that's all we ever wanted from the project browser, basically. And this is really great. I can't say how much I'm going to use this, but if we come to the Insert tab, we can actually link a coordination model. And that can be locally, if we just want to do a Navisworks or whatnot, or literally an Autodesk Docs file, which is great. Now, I don't have any to look at necessarily, but it is cool that we can actually directly link a coordination model from Autodesk Docs, which is, that's cool. Let's head back to 3D here. And, you know, obviously I need to turn my, go to view and my canvas, turn that back to something normal, but we have actually a different view mode, and I never thought we would see this, or display mode. I never thought we'd get this, and I can't say it will necessarily do a lot, but you could see, obviously, we have our wireframe, hidden line, shaded, consistent, and realistic, but we have textures, which is interesting. So looking at wireframe, yeah, we know what that is. Obviously, shaded, of course, pretty. Consistent colors, it is what it is. And then our realistic, which I'll spare you that. But if we click on textures, it takes an extra second, but ultimately what we get is kind of a mix in my mind between realistic and just kind of consistent colors, or a shaded view, because we're going to see our textures, but it's not realistic. It's basically just using the textures that are there. So if I do consistent colors, obviously, yeah, we get that, but texture is a bit different in that sense, which is great. You could almost think of it as a bit of a dumbed down version of realistic, where you don't have the shadows or the specific lighting, anything like that, but you do want to see those specific textures. If I'm being honest, I can't see myself using it that much because I'm not doing most of my materializing within Revit. I'm not going to that trouble. So that's just me. But if you do, it will be helpful nonetheless. So, and a couple more things that I particularly love is I'm actually going to go over here to our second floor plan, and I'm actually going to throw in on the sheet some revision clouds. So here we go, double revision cloud there. I will do the exact same thing over here. Maybe we're going to update that room, and then finally maybe right there. That'll be great. And I can tag these if I want. That's great. Here, here, and there. Cool. So that's it. I like that. Obviously, none of that has changed. That's all the same. But what has changed? Well, if I come over here to view, and then I go to schedules, basically make a new schedule, I now have the option to, if I search in revision, look, I can actually schedule revision clouds. Now, if you have not done a lot of construction administration, if you're not responding to RFIs, if you're not tracking projects during construction with revision clouds, then maybe you don't care about this. Maybe you don't know. I would highly recommend that you check out some of the previous revision-esque videos that I've done in the past. They will basically bring you up to speed. But the whole point of this, what is new is that, yes, we can now schedule revision clouds. And what is the significance to me? I mean, to me personally, we have the mark. We only have, this is all we need. And let me tell you why. We have the mark value, which is like what revision cloud is it? Like which one in particular? We have what revision it is, and then specific comments about that revision cloud. Okay. Obviously, we can pull from revision, which is fantastic. We can pull from a lot. Now, I'm going to start with these three because in the end, that's kind of all we need. We do want to see the sheet, maybe the sheet number, but nonetheless, that's what we want. Okay, and so I'll press OK, and we'll see what happens. So yes, we get, these are all the revision clouds in the project. That's what I would expect to see. And honestly, this is nothing too fantastic. Actually, let's see if we have a dark mode here. In fact, we don't. Not sure why. This seems like it'd be pretty simple, but you know, can't win it all. Can't have it all. Okay, so why is this significant? Well, every time you end up issuing a larger set, once the project has started into construction, you're likely going to have to start adding revision clouds, which means you're tracking all of that differently than you would in a permit or construction set. Totally different, which means you need to start tracking them, and we use revision clouds to do that. Of course, you're going to resend new drawings and all of that. But on top of that, every time I've done it, and I'm sure this is basically an industry standard, is you'll send call it written narrative along with that, with all of the updated sheets and information with the revision clouds and everything. And that written narrative will explain, okay, what sheets were updated and then what was updated on those sheets. Makes sense because you're saying, hey, contractor, here's all the new sheets, all the sheets that were updated with the revision clouds, and then here's a list of those with the specific updates. It just makes everything easier. And I, by no means am I saying that having the ability to revision, like actually have a revision cloud schedule, it's not going to take the place of having to give a narrative to the contractor, but it can, in fact, be our narrative. And I love this. Why? There's a couple reasons I love this. And I'll make another video really going through it all. But the reason I love it is I can actually look at all of these different clouds individually. And so in this case, yeah, that's the revision. It's sequence 3, whatever. The naming will be different, of course. But so that's the name of my revision, which makes total sense. I'll have a specific mark that applies to this revision cloud, because I might have 24 revision clouds in that entire issuance. Cool. Great. It's going to number them. But on top of that, the main thing I care about is the comment. So basically, the reason we have this schedule set up this way is that I can comment on each one of these revision clouds, and I'm going to get reported, I'll be reported what sheet that cloud is on. And so literally that in of itself is the most basic version of what I would need for a narrative. And that's what this is. This is allowing me to take my sheets with the clouds on them, but specifically because I can schedule it, I'm good to go. I can literally include this revision schedule once I format it and everything as my narrative. I can just print it separately, send it along, and be on my way. And the cool thing is I'm already in Revit updating the model, updating the sheets because we have revisions. I don't want to have to go back into, God forbid, Microsoft Word and just write all of this out. I'm already doing it in Revit, so let's just do it in Revit. And this is going to allow us to do it. I love this. So excited. I've never been more excited to implement more revision clouds into my workflow. Never thought I would say that either. Okay, and then finally, the pinnacle, in my opinion, of all updates in Revit 2024 has to be this. It really does. And if you're familiar with me, if you're familiar with what I like, if you're familiar with what I know, that is Twinmotion. And I remember a handful of months ago when Autodesk partnered with Epic Games that I knew at that moment, as soon as Revit 2024 came out, things would change for the better. And that means basically the news that we received from that a few months ago was that Twinmotion would be better, call it integrated with Revit. Cool. Great. That's cool. But how is that? Well, if I go to the View tab It is everything and more that you wanted. It has its own dedicated button right here in the View tab. It literally is built into Revit. Now, you need to, of course, install Twinmotion. It's basically a plugin, of course, but the fact is all of this is built into Revit now. You can open it. You can open it directly from here, which is amazing. If you've ever opened it from the Epic Games launcher, it can be kind of a hassle. But you no longer have to do that. And believe me, I'm always going to do this. So what does this do? Well, if you've ever used Inkscape, you know exactly what this does. It's just as simple as this. I'm going to click open in Twinmotion, and guess what? We're going to get this model open in Twinmotion. Of course, I have the latest 2023.1 that is installed. It came out literally hours before Revit 2024. There was something going on. They kind of figured out when they needed to release these things, and that be it together. Hello. Don't worry. The Twinmotion 2023.1 video will be out tomorrow. And just so you know, you don't have to change any of this. And if you're at all interested about anything Twinmotion, which I hope you are, I have plenty of videos, a ton of videos on Twinmotion. I have a whole playlist of all of them. I would highly recommend you jump around and basically figure out what you don't know and learn it, because it is now a part of Revit. It is a part of our lives. It's replacing other rendering programs that I will not continue to name in this video for no particular reason. But here we can just do a new project. I cover all of these import options and everything like that in other videos for Twinmotion, so check those out. But there's nothing all that special here. I would do things a bit differently next time, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to press OK and get things moving. So immediately it opens up. And also, if you're familiar with Twinmotion 2023 at all, they have a brand new UI. Obviously, they've always had dark mode, but a brand new UI. And you can see how quick this is. And it's directly linked with Revit. That's the whole idea. It is directly linked with Revit. And of course, it's going to pull all of those materials, most of which I don't care about, but I have the ability to immediately switch those out, dragging and dropping and moving on. So I'm going to save the Twinmotion 2023 update for another video, but specifically with Revit, I'll make that its own video because it's a big thing. It's now a part of Revit. It's not just a standalone program that exists that you can export to that happens to have a connection with Revit. No, not only does it have a connection, but it is directly linked within Revit. It ships with Revit. It's installed with Revit. You can't say no to it being in Revit. It is a part of our lives in Revit now. So I would get used to it, but it's going to be great. It really is great. So I'm looking forward to that. So that is going to do it for all of the major architectural updates for Revit 2024. We looked at a lot, and I'm so excited. And honestly, I will say there are a couple of other little things here or there. I'll cover those later on. But as far as the big things, you can see there's like 4 or 5, and they're not that big. Obviously, we didn't talk about Dynamo, things like that. It's big on its own, and we'll cover Space Maker on its own. That's kind of big on its own too. But within Revit, 4 or 5 things, they make a difference. The fact that I can search in the browser much more efficiently, dragging in views, like it's fantastic. It really is. So I hope you stick around. Please do subscribe. That helps a lot. We're obviously going to cover all of this and more and get into AI and architecture. There's a lot going on with that right now, but tons with new Revit features, Twinmotion, you name it. It's going to happen soon. And so if you're at all interested in any of this kind of information, you just like the content, anything like that, please subscribe and always demolish that like button. It really helps me out quite a lot. Welcome to Revit 2024, everyone. I will see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day, and thanks so much for watching.